Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please, guys, participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
You will hear a conversation between a representative of an insurance company and a person who wishes to apply for life insurance.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Now, to process your application, I need some details about you and about your medical history. Could you tell me your name, please?
Yes, my name is Rowlands. That's Rowlands. George Rowlands.
Thank you. And your address, Mr. Rowlands?
I live in Strathfield, at 52 Green Street. The postcode for Strathfield is 2135.
Strathfield 2135. Thank you. How old were you at your last birthday?
I was 35 on September the 10th.
How tall are you, Mr. Rowlands?
I think I'm about 170 or 175 centimetres tall. Let's say 1 metre 75.
And is your current weight your normal weight?
Oh, yes. My weight doesn't change much. I suppose I'm lucky, really. I've never had to worry about putting on weight. I'm always about the same, around 80 kilos.
Fine. Are you married at the moment, Mr. Rowlands?
Actually, that's one of the reasons I wanted to sort out some insurance. I'm planning to get married quite soon. I guess when you settle down, you start to think of things like that.
Yes, we often find people take out life insurance when some major change happens in their lives, like getting married or changing their job.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions
6 to 10.
Now, I've got some questions relating to health matters. We will, of course, be requiring a full medical examination, but I need some basic details from you now.
That's okay. I expect you need to know that I'm healthy, don't you?
That's right. Have you ever had a serious illness at any time of your life?
What would you describe as a serious illness?
Oh, not childhood things like measles or a bad cold, but a kidney disorder, say, or pneumonia or a cancerous growth?
Oh, no. I've never had anything like that. I've always been healthy, never been in hospital.
I'll just write none, then. And I'll put the same thing, none, for major operations, too, if you've never been in hospital. Do you have any medical conditions requiring medication?
No, not really. I take aspirin for a headache at times, but that's all. Oh, I guess you had better mention hay fever. I get bad hay fever in the early summer, and I take antihistamines then.
Yes, I'd better note down hay fever. Now, what about your parents? It's usually relevant to a person's medical history. Can you tell me if your parents are still alive?
My mother is still living, and she's healthy. But my father was killed last year in a car accident.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. It must have been a shock to you.
Yes, it was a bad time for the whole family. He had just retired from his job and was looking forward to doing all sorts of things. He was only 67.
It's terrible the way these things happen, isn't it? I've just got one last question, Mr. Rowlands. Do you smoke?
No, I don't smoke now. I used to, but I gave it up about 5 years ago.
Well, I think that's all for now. Thank you, Mr. Rowlands. We'll let you know the date and time of your appointment for the medical checkup, and after that we can finalise your application.
Thank you very much. I'll wait to hear from you.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear a tour guide giving information about a historic house and the organisation that owns it.
First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16.
As you know, Holloway Estate is one of the few surviving estates in this area that still retains many of the farming features of the past. Let me quickly explain where you can find some of the key attractions. If you take a look on your map, we are now standing at the foot of the steps to the manor house. Can everyone see it marked with an arrow? Don't forget, this is our meeting point for when we leave. So, directly behind us is the fountain. From here, heading left, the path takes you to a gate which leads into the famous Holloway orchards, where, for hundreds of years, the estate has been growing its highly prized apples, cherries, and plums. Incidentally, if you fancy trying them, a range of delicious Holloway jams and preserves are available in the gift shop. Speaking of which, the gift shop is to the right of the main house. If you go through the gate, the left-hand path takes you to the apiary, that's to say, the beehives, where Holloway honey has been collected for more than 250 years. And yes, before anyone asks, you can also buy Holloway honey. If you take the right-hand path, you will come to some old farmers' cottages, which have been renovated and are rented out as holiday cottages. Please feel free to admire them from the outside, but as there may be guests staying in them right now, please respect their privacy. From the back of the main house, crossing the car park, and just before you get to the cattle fields, you will find a row of 3 buildings. The middle one is the old dairy. The dairy is actually working, producing butter and cheeses using traditional methods. Next to that, on the left, are the former cattle sheds, where the livestock was kept. Nowadays it's used as a museum, so those of you who are keen to explore Holloway's farming past should pay it a visit. The building furthest from the manor house is the old ice house, which is no longer in use and is due to be restored, hopefully next year. Last but not least, you may have noticed on the way in that on either side of the main gates are 2 small houses. This is a traditional feature of country houses of the period. On the right-hand side, as you enter the estate, is what was known as the gatekeeper's lodge. This has now become the estate office, and the estate manager runs the estate from there. OK, I think that just about covers everything.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20.
OK, everyone, before we begin the tour of the Manor House, I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about the organisation that now owns the estate, and for which I work, the National Trust. The National Trust is the largest membership organisation in the UK, with 4.24 million members. Our annual revenue is £494 million. At the present time, we have 5,899 paid members of staff and an additional 62,000 volunteers. That's an approximate number because new volunteers are joining us all the time. The Trust owns about 350 heritage properties. Many of these are large country houses that the owners donated to us because they could no longer afford to maintain them. The Trust also owns gardens and industrial monuments. The Trust's sources of income include membership subscriptions, entrance fees, donations, and revenue from the gift shops and restaurants within our properties, with much of the money raised being invested back in the preservation of the properties themselves. And, of course, this is the principal purpose of the National Trust, the conservation and protection of historical places and spaces, with a view to making them available to the public. As well as owning stately homes and houses associated with famous people, the National Trust has gradually extended its collection of art, and it also owns valuable books, clothing, furniture, ceramics, and all kinds of unusual objects. Now, if you would like to join the National Trust, I have the forms here, or you can visit our website and join online. You'll get unlimited access to hundreds of wonderful days out across the country. Lifetime membership costs £1,555, but most members join for a year at a time. Individual membership is currently £64 annually, but it's cheaper to join with your partner or another family member, as it'll be £108 for two people living at the same address. For a family of 4, 2 adults and 2 children, a year's membership costs £114. It's a great gift for a birthday or other special event. There are lots of benefits to being a member. As well as free parking at all our locations, you receive a National Trust handbook full of information to help you plan your visits. And if you pay by direct debit, you'll receive a free pair of binoculars. Oh, I almost forgot. All members receive a free copy of the National Trust magazine, sent to you by post 3 times a year.
The end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear an interview with Students Placement Officer talking about work placements. First, you have some time to read questions 21 to 25.
Hello, Mike. Hi, Dave. Come in and take a seat. Thanks. Can you explain to our students how a work placement increases their chances of securing a job after they've graduated?
Well, the most obvious thing to say here is that many graduates go on to work for the company that offered them the placement experience in the first place.
Yes, I can see why this might happen, but in a more general sense, what are the benefits of a placement?
Right. Placements give students a real insight into the culture of the workplace and how they can transfer their knowledge and skills to it. By drawing on placement experiences, Graduates are able to sell themselves more effectively when applying for a job or compiling a CV. And at the interview stage, graduates appear more confident and can express themselves in a language appropriate to their chosen career.
Okay, fine. And what about the employer's perspective on work placements? How do employers benefit?
Employers can see how a prospective employee performs within a team, also whether they are a good communicator and problem solver. It's a job with duties and responsibilities at a level that an undergraduate should cope with. Work placements help employers to recruit the right person for the job.
And what about when the student returns to college at the end of the placement? What advantages does the work experience bring to college work?
Well, the majority of students find their placements to be positive learning experiences. Work experience enables students to make links between theory and practice, which should facilitate academic learning.
Right, and just one last thing on placements. What about mentorship and support during the work placement?
Each student has a mentor in the workplace and a placement tutor, an academic member of staff who makes regular visits to the workplace to discuss the student's progress and, if necessary, resolve any problems or issues.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Now you have some time to read questions 26 to 30.
Now, continuing with our theme of graduate employment, we're going to talk about soft skills, what they are and why you need them. Mike, can you define what is meant by soft skills?
Yes, soft skills are an extension of what I mentioned earlier when I spoke about team working and communication. It's not sufficient these days to have only the know-how. By that I mean technical skills to do the job. Employers also look for personal qualities and interpersonal skills.
And why are personal qualities so important in the business world?
Well, employers want people that are going to add value to their business and not detract from it. Simple things like lack of punctuality, showing up on time and being dependable will always be important to any company, as are honesty and integrity. These personal characteristics are an inherent part of an individual's makeup and are difficult to change. Soft skills also include coping skills when faced with difficult situations and challenges. Again, performance in these areas is linked with inbuilt traits.
I see. And what about interpersonal skills? Can't these be improved with practice or training?
Yes, they can, because it is possible to change the way that you interact with colleagues and customers. The ability to communicate effectively, both through speech and in your documentation, is at the core of interpersonal skills. Equally important is the ability to demonstrate respectful listening.
And how will good soft skills help you in an interview situation?
Soft skills are vital to a successful interview. The impression you create can play a large part in the decision to make a job offer or not. Employers need to know that you have the right attitude. Will you fit in? Are you a team player? Do you appear positive and enthusiastic? You must be able to make the necessary changes to market yourself in this way.
Well, thanks, Mike. That's most interesting.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You'll hear a lecturer talking about Charles Darwin and Galapagos Islands. First, you have some time to read questions 31 to 40. Today I'm going to talk about a man who explained how life on Earth evolved through a process of natural selection, the survival of the fittest. His name is Charles Darwin, and he was born in England in 1809. Darwin's mother was the daughter of the renowned Staffordshire potter Josiah Wedgwood, and his father was a wealthy doctor. Darwin's mother died when he was 9 years old, and his father sent him to boarding school. During vacations, Darwin would collect and study wildlife, especially insects. In 1825, Darwin attended the University of Edinburgh to study medicine. However, he lacked the aptitude for the subject, being more interested in botany. He joined a student natural history group which introduced him to the science of geology. Darwin left medical school 2 years later without completing his training. Darwin's father was disappointed by his son's failure at Edinburgh, and he sent him to Cambridge to study theology. He graduated from Cambridge in 1831, aged 22, but decided against becoming a clergyman, much to the dismay of his father. Whilst at Cambridge, Darwin had met a professor of botany, who encouraged him to pursue his interest in natural history, and later recommended him as a crew member on the Royal Navy mapping ship HMS Beagle. The ship embarked for South America in 1831, sailing from Plymouth, England. It dropped anchor in Brazil, Argentina, the Falkland Islands and Chile, before arriving at the Galapagos Islands in 1835. Here Darwin observed species of plants, birds and reptiles that were unique to the islands. The rest of the journey took in Sydney, Australia and Cape Town, South Africa, with stops in the Keeling Islands and Mauritius. The route back to England included a stop in the tropics of South America, where Darwin made further important discoveries. The journey took 5 years and enabled Darwin to study life on 3 continents, collecting plants, insects and rock samples whilst taking notes and making drawings. In 1839, Darwin married his cousin Emma Wedgwood, and they had 10 children. He published the zoological findings of the HMS Beagle expedition between 1838 and 1843, in several parts, covering birds, fossils, insects, reptiles and mammals. Darwin continued with his research into natural selection, culminating in his seminal work On the Origin of Species, published in 1859. The book was an overnight success, though it caused widespread controversy, because its theories appeared to conflict with the accepted religious view of creationism. Nevertheless, Charles Darwin's theories gradually gained acceptance, and when he died in 1882, aged 73, he was honoured by being buried in Westminster Abbey. He will always be known as the father of evolution. Of all the places Darwin visited, it is the Galapagos Islands that are most associated with his theory of evolution. The islands lie in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Ecuador, South America. The word Galapago is Spanish for terrapin, and it refers to a small edible turtle that Spanish sailors used as a food source. Darwin observed variations in turtles, reptiles, birds and other species unique to each island, suggesting that the animals had adapted to their specific environment. The distances between the islands were too large for the animals to interbreed, so they must have descended from a common ancestor. Darwin also found fossilized remains of creatures that were now extinct, consistent with a failure to adapt to changes in habitat. Darwin believed in the survival of the fittest, that is to say, only those members of a species that were best adapted to their surroundings would survive. For example, the finches on the island had beaks of a different size and shape suited to their diet. Long pointed beaks to probe for grubs and to grab small seeds, or wider sturdy beaks for cracking nuts and eating larger seeds. The extinction of animals not capable of competing for the food is vital to Darwin's theory of natural selection.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.